Right, let's have a look at this next question. And what we're doing is just going through a number of the questions that came up in the chat on some previous webinars, which we didn't get to in the actual webinar. So this question talks about whether a master's student is permitted to replicate a study conducted from one country to another. So I expect this is from another country other than SA or South Africa. And yes, supervisor is correct. One must make a unique contribution, absolutely. But you can replicate a study on a different set of data and make a unique contribution. And in actual fact, contribution can be quite significant because you're testing previous work and you're giving more generalizability of the original findings. And you are effectively, it's a deductive approach, really. So there'll be some sort of theory or results of that previous study, and you're now taking that and testing it. I would just recognize as well that supervisors might be a little bit nervous that you're just copying and pasting the methodology, and that's something that you must just counter for and be very specific about. What are the exact steps that you're going to follow that were done in the previous study that makes it comparable, but what is the extra work that you've done to do the additional extra contribution, etc. So it might be that you replicate the study on a different set of data and you make sufficient additional contribution with that, but then you might extend the study. You might make some hypothesis about whether you think that study is going to survive your data set, because often you apply the same study to a different data set and it's completely disproved. Many examples of that. So you make some hypothesis about that, you do the study, and then you extend it, or you design an extension to that original study based on your hypothesis. And you say, well, I have a hypothesis not going to survive this data, but why? Why do I believe this? And how can I then go about extending the original study in a way that then gives some substance to my hypothesis? So that would be some thoughts around that. I think, yes, supervisors are wary of, a copy-paste study, but mathematics is full of studies that have been done to develop formulas, and we replicate those formulas every day when we apply them in science, etc. And it's only because we've replicated them and tested them in multiple different situations that we can actually rely on them. So we only know that mathematical equations work because we tested them on different sets of data, and we can prove that they work every time on any other set of data. So I mean, if you were to apply a similar study to multiple different countries, then you develop a regional application of that study to multiple countries, which could be quite significant. So if those countries share some similar properties because they're grouped together in a certain region, you then lift that study up from a country-specific study to maybe a regional study. So that there's some aspects there. Your unique contribution in this case could be to take the results of the previous study, the results of the new study that you're doing in your country, and then do some regional hypothesizing or regional application of those results, which could make it quite interesting. So there's a couple of thoughts just to answer this question about how do you make a unique contribution. It's not replicating a study, it's reusing a methodology and an approach on a different data set, I think, is what you should be aiming for.